In part 1, we build a high-performance business homepage using only HTML and modern CSS. Now, we're taking it further, transforming that single page into a complete, multi-page business website with about, services, and contact pages. Still no frameworks. Still no JavaScript libraries. By the end of this video, you'll have a fully structured website that real businesses can use immediately. And in part 3, we'll prove once and for all that native technologies can deliver a production-grade, ultra-fast website. Let's get into it. We'll create 3 essential pages every business website needs. An about page to build trust, a services page to showcase offerings, and a contact page to generate leads. Each page will have special features such as testimonials, a contact form, a pricing table, and an FAQ. In part 1, we built a polished homepage, index.html, with a hero section, services overview, and a Why Choose Us layout. That homepage exists as a single file. But a real business website needs multiple pages. One to tell the company's story about, one to detail its offerings, services, and one so visitors can get in touch, contact. This section covers the architecture of that expansion. Before writing a single line of content for those pages, we need to get the structure right, the folder layout, the file naming, and how every page uses the same navigation and footer without duplicating code. This is important because browsers serve files, not applications. When a user clicks About in your NAV bar, the browser literally loads a different file. Getting your folder structure and relative paths right from the start prevents broken links, missing style sheets, and hours of debugging later. Your project folder from part 1 should already look something like this. Business site, the root folder with index.html file, then CSS folder with styles.css file, and images folder with herobg.jpg and whychooseus.jpg files. We're going to extend this, not restructure it. The new HTML pages will stay in the project root folder as index.html. Some tutorials place pages inside a pages subfolder. We deliberately keep them in the root because it keeps all relative paths simple and predictable. The CSS/ and images/ paths will remain identical on every page. Moving pages into a subfolder adds /complexity with no real benefit for a small business site. The updated folder structure would now look like this. Business site with the files index.html, about.html, services.html, and contact.html, CSS folder with styles.css, and images/ folder with the files herobg.jpg, whychooseus.jpg, aboutteam.jpg, and ogimage.jpg. You will need to add 2 more images to the images folder with the corresponding names. Go ahead and create the 3 new HTML files now. About.html, services.html, and contact.html in the project root business site folder. Leave them empty for now. We will fill them in step by step. Copy and paste each of the following code in each of the new files we created in the project root: about.html, services.html, and contact.html files, respectively. Every new page begins with the same HTML boilerplate we established in part 1, with 3 important updates to the head: a page-specific title, a page-specific meta name equals description, and later in section 6, page-specific open graph tags. The link to our shared style sheet remains identical on every page. Notice the consistent title pattern: page name, brand name. This is the industry standard format. Because browser tabs are narrow, showing the page name first tells users which tab is which. The brand name at the end provides a consistent identity. Search engines display the title and results, so putting the most descriptive word first improves click-through rates. Because index.html, about.html, services.html, and contact.html all stay in the project root, they all reference the style sheet with the exact same path. Ref equals css/styles.css. And they all reference images like src equals images/herobg.jpg. Thus, when one page links to another, we use the file name directly as the ref value. The browser resolves it relative to the current page's location. Let's now build a consistent header and navigation for all the pages. In part 1, our navigation bar linked to hashtag placeholder. When you click on the page links, it does nothing. Now we connect every link to its real destination page. We also add an active state, a visual indicator showing which page the user is currently on. This is a key UX pattern for multi-page sites. When a user lands on your About page, they should immediately see About highlighted in the navigation. This orientation cue reduces cognitive load and tells the user where they are without them having to read the page title. It also provides a secondary affordance, confirming that the link they clicked worked. Since we are building with HTML and CSS only, we add the active state manually on each page using an ARIA_current equals page attribute. This is the semantically correct, accessible way to indicate the current page. Screen readers announce it automatically, and we style it with CSS. Copy the following HTML code and paste it in the header section of each of the pages, including the index.html page. For index.html, replace the existing header with this HTML code. The above header code has two major changes from the one used in part 1. First, the logo.iv class equals logo is now a tag with ref equals index.html. This makes it a clickable logo. A clickable logo is a universal web convention. Users expect the logo to bring them home. Second, the NAV now has ARIA label equals main navigation, which helps screen readers distinguish this NAV from other navigation elements, like a footer NAV on the same page. Finally, for this section, before we apply styles, let's upgrade our footer across all pages. In part 1, we build a minimal footer, a centered copyright line. We will use that same footer as a placeholder across all pages now, and upgraded to a full multi-column layout in Section 5 of this tutorial. For consistency, every page should use the same footer markup. Inconsistent footers are a common sign of amateur-built sites. Every page should have the same footer structure, the same links, and the same legal copy. It signals professionalism, ensures users can always find contact info or copyright notices no matter where they are, and helps search engines understand your site structure. Copy and paste this code in the footer section of all the pages, including the index.html page. You should notice two small but meaningful changes made to the code in part 1. Now, we added a class site footer to the footer element and wrapped the content in a footer inner div. Both classes give us hooks for the multi-column upgrade in Section 5 without breaking anything now. Our final step in this section is updating the CSS to support shared components. Now let's switch to the styles.css file. Open css/styles.css. We need to make 3 targeted updates. Style the logo as a link, replacing the old .logo div style. Add the active nav state, and add base styles for the new page components we'll build throughout part 2. Copy the code and paste it under the header styles immediately after enavlinks A. The logo is now an A tag. We need to remove the default link underline and give it the correct weight and color so it looks great and clean. We added rules after your existing enavlinks styles. The aria current equals page. Selector targets any link with that attribute. No extra classes needed. The full image hero from index.html is specific to the homepage. The inner pages, about, services, contact, each need a compact page top banner, a simpler color block with the page title. We call this a page hero or banner. We've added the styles now. They'll be ready when we build the content in Section 2. Each inner page will have content sections that need consistent max width and horizontal padding. Rather than repeating this on every section, we add a reusable .pageContent container class. Finally, we added a base style for the .site footer and .footer inner classes we added to the footer markup. This keeps the current appearance identical to part 1 while setting up for the full multi-column upgrade. In the next section, we'll build the complete about, services, and contact pages with full HTML structure, semantic markup, storytelling layouts, and all supporting CSS using the variables and patterns established in part 1. Each page in a business website has a specific job. The About page builds trust by telling a human story, who you are, what you believe, and who is behind the work. The Services page communicates value. It tells potential clients what you do, why it matters, and what they can expect. The Contact page removes friction by making reaching you effortless. Every layout decision we make in this section is driven by those jobs. We are not decorating. We are solving communication problems with structure and code. Every page here uses the shared header and footer markup from Section 1. The .page hero, .page content, and footer CSS we added the styles CSS are already in place. This section adds the inner main content and the CSS to style it. The About page is one of the most visited pages on any business website, yet one of the most neglected. Visitors land here specifically to answer the question, can I trust these people? A strong About page answers that question with a clear story, real values, and visible people. We will build 4 distinct sections: a page hero banner, a mission statement with an image text grid, a core values block, and a team member row. 1. The About page banner. The page hero uses the .page hero class we added to styles the CSS in Section 1. It is a gradient banner carrying the page title and a one-line descriptor. This replaces the full background image hero used on the homepage. Inner pages need a lighter, faster loading banner that reinforces the page identity without competing with the content below. Copy the HTML code below and paste it into the main section of the about.html file. Two, mission and story, image plus text grid. This is the heart of the About page. A two-column layout, image on the left, story text on the right, delivers professional credibility immediately. The layout uses CSS grid. The image gives the text visual weight. The text gives the image context. Together, they form a stronger impression than either would alone. Copy the code below into the main section, after the page hero section. Note the addition of width, height, and loading equals lazy attributes. Width and height prevent layout shift, the page jumping as images load. Loading equals lazy defers loading this image until the user scrolls near it. This is a free performance win since the image is below the fold. 3. Core values cards. After the story, we reinforce it with a concrete values grid. 4 cards, each with an emoji icon, a short title, and 1 descriptive sentence. This pattern is fast to scan, visually balanced, and gives search engines keyword-rich semantic content without stuffing. Copy and paste the code within the main section under the mission section. The emoji icons are decorative. The heading and paragraph text already fully describe each value. Adding aria hidden equals true to the icon container tells screen readers to skip it entirely, preventing the announcement of emoji character names, which would be redundant and confusing. 4. Team member row. Faces build trust faster than any copywriting. A simple team row, avatar, name, role, short bio, humanizes the business and shows visitors there are real people behind the work. We use all as the container because team members are a list of parallel items. Copy the following code into the main section below core values. The SRC values above, teamkemi.jpg, teammike.jpg, teamsarah.jpg, are placeholders. Add your actual team photos to the images/folder and update the SRC and alt attributes to match. The alt text should describe who is in the image, name and role, not just team photo. The services page, services.html. The homepage services section introduced 3 service cards as a teaser. This page is the full version. Each service gets its own detail card with a description and a feature list. We also add a How We Work process strip and a bottom CTA call to action to drive conversions. Copy and paste the code in the main section of the services.html page. Each service is wrapped in an article. This is an independently meaningful, self-contained content. Inside each card, an emoji icon, a heading, a paragraph description, and a feature list using a semantical. The grid is the same autofit/min-max pattern from part 1, so it already responds to all screen sizes without extra media queries. A number process section removes a major objection prospective clients carry. I don't know what working with you actually looks like. 4 steps, numbered, with a short explanation each. We use an ordered list, OL, because the sequence matters. This is the semantically correct element for numbered steps. Every services page needs a conversion moment, a section that asks the visitor to take the next step. We place it at the bottom of the page after they have read everything. A dark strip with a clear heading, a supporting line, and a button pointing to the contact page. The contact page, contact.html. The contact page has one job: make it easy to reach you. It achieves this with a two-column layout. A form on the left, the primary action, and supporting business details on the right: phone, email, address, and hours. The form markup here is the full semantic structure. Form validation, input types, and backing connection are covered in depth in Section 4. Copy and paste the following code inside the main section of the services.html file. The layout is a CSS grid two-column split. The form column is wider, 1.5 FR, because it is the primary action. The details column is narrower, 1 FR, and serves as supporting information. On small screens, the grid collapses to a single column automatically. A form element is the semantically correct container for interactive input controls. It gives the browser the information it needs to handle submission, enables native validation, allows users to submit with the enter key, and ensures assistive technologies like screen readers announce the form boundaries to their users. Never wrap form inputs in a generic div. The business details column uses aside because it is supplementary content related to the main form. The email and phone links use ref equals mailto and ref equals tel. These trigger the native mail and phone apps on mobile, which dramatically improves conversion on small screens. The noValidate attribute on the form prevents browser default validation pop-ups. We build our own clean validation in Section 4. The action attribute points to FormSpree, a free service that receives your form submissions and emails them to you. Replace your _form_ID with your actual FormSpree endpoint, covered fully in Section 4. CSS for Section 2, CSS/styles.css. Add all of the following CSS code to CSS/styles.css below the existing ones. The rules are organized in the same order the sections appear on the pages: about, then services, then contact, with shared utilities at the top. Most of our grids use autofit/minmax and collapse naturally without media queries. That is the beauty of intrinsic web design. However, the contact two-column layout uses 1.5 FR, 1 FR with explicit proportions, which cannot auto-collapse on its own. A singlet media, max width, 700 px, rule fixes both the contact grid and the two-column name /email row in one go. This is the minimum amount of media query code needed to make the page fully responsive. Next, we'll build 4 essential business components: testimonials, logo wall, pricing table, and FAQ. Using semantic HTML and modern CSS. Zero JavaScript, fully accessible. The 4 components, testimonial, logo wall, pricing table, and FAQ, together form the complete trust and conversion layer of a professional business website. Every business website needs to answer the same core questions a potential client is asking. Can I trust these people? What exactly do I get? What does it cost? And what if I have questions? These 4 components answer those questions in that order. Testimonials provide social proof from real clients. The logo wall signals credibility through brand recognition. The pricing table sets clear expectations and nudges toward a recommended plan. And the FAQ removes the last objections before a visitor becomes a lead. These components are built as self-contained sections inside index.html, the homepage. They can also be reused or referenced from services.html and contact.html, which we'll do in Section 2. Each component is designed so that removing or reordering it requires changing only a few lines of HTML. 1. The testimonials section. This is a collection of client quotes using semantic block quote, styled avatars, and CSS grid layout. We'll create a 3-column section of client testimonials, each with a quote, star rating, client name, role, and avatar, all using accessible, semantic HTML. Client quotes are, by definition, quotations from another person. The semantically correct element for an extended quotation attributed to someone is block quote. Inside it, we use a less than P for the quote text and a footer with cite for the attribution. This structure is announced correctly by screen readers and recognized by search engines as a quotation. Add this code inside an index.html after the Why Choose Us section. Before writing the CSS, understand why each element was chosen. Section ARIA labeled by equals testimonials heading. The ARIA labeled by attribute connects this section to its heading. Screen readers announce the section name when a user navigates by landmark, so they hear what our clients say section rather than just section. Article. Each testimonial card is a self-contained piece of content. If you extracted one card and placed it elsewhere, it would still make sense. That's the definition of an article. Block quote. The semantic element for a quotation. Using P would be technically valid but semantically wrong. A browser or search engine would have no way to know this text is a quote from another person. Footer inside block quote. A block quote can legally contain a footer. This is the HTML spec recommended way to include attribution for a quote. The cite element inside it names the source. Stars with ARIA label plus ARIA hidden. The star characters are decorative to visual users but meaningless to screen readers. We put the visible stars inside a span ARIA hidden equals true, so they are ignored, and put the accessible label on the parent div. ARIA label equals 5 out of 5 stars. Screen readers announce the label. Cited users see the stars. Both groups get the right information. The SRC paths reference images /client sarah.jpg, etc. Add real client photos to your images /folder. If you don't have photos, we handle the CSS fallback in the next step. The avatar will show a colored circle with initials. Styling the testimonials. Add these rules to CSS/styles.css to style the testimonials section. In the above styles, setting display. Flex direction. Column on both .testimonial card and block quote. Then flex, one on block quote P, ensures the quote text expands to fill available space. This means the author's footer always aligns to the card's bottom, regardless of quote length. A professional detail that requires no JavaScript. Two, social proof, logo wall. We'll create a row of client or partner logos arranged in a responsive grid, clean, minimal, and visually confident, without needing image editing skills. The testimonials and logo wall deal with social proof, but they serve distinct psychological roles. Testimonials provide narrative credibility, stories, and emotions. The logo wall provides institutional credibility, recognition signals. Combining them into one section muddies both messages. Keeping them separate lets each section work at full strength. The logo wall typically appears above testimonials on the page because name recognition, they worked with Zenith Bank, is a faster, lower friction trust signal than reading a quote. In a real project, you would use SVG logo files. Preferred, they scale perfectly, or PNGs with transparent backgrounds. For this tutorial, we use a text-based fallback that renders elegantly without actual image files. The HTML structure is identical whether you use images or text. Copy and paste the following HTML code directly above the testimonials section in the index.html file. The O role equals list. Logo items are an unordered list of brands. The role equals list attribute is added because Safari with VoiceOver removes list semantics when list style none is applied via CSS. This attribute explicitly restores the list role for all screen readers. Each logo wrapped in logos typically link to a case study or the client's website. Even if you don't have a URL yet, wrapping in an anchor is the correct structure. The ARIA label provides screen reader text since the visible text is hidden with ARIA hidden. Switching to real images. When you have SVG or PNG logos, simply replace span class equals logo text, ARIA hidden equals true, brightpath/span with imgsrc equals images/logo brightpath, SVG, alt equals brightpath consulting class equals logo img / and update the CSS accordingly. Styling the logo wall. Copy and paste the CSS to style the logo wall. Take note of the following. The filter, grayscale 100%, opacity 0.5, applied to real logo images is a professional standard. It prevents logos from visually competing with each other through color conflicts and creates a clean, unified gray tone. On hover, filter, grayscale 0%, restores full color, a subtle, delightful interaction that costs nothing in performance. Three, the pricing table. We'll build a 3-column basic/pro/enterprise pricing table where the recommended plan is visually elevated, using CSS only. Pricing tables look professional only when rows align perfectly across cards. The price amount on one card sits at the same vertical position as the price amount on the others. The feature list items align horizontally, and the CTA buttons sit at the same height. This is hard to achieve without JavaScript when card content lengths vary. CSS Grid Subgrid solves this elegantly. To create a professional pricing table, add this HTML code in the index.html file after the services section. The parent.pricinggrid defines the row tracks. .pricing card spans all rows and opts into the parent's row tracks with grid row, subgrid. Every direct child of the card then automatically lands on the same parent row track as its counterpart in neighboring cards. Perfect alignment with pure CSS. Pricing card featured using a BEM modifier class, double dash. on the Pro card cleanly separates featured state from base styling. The modifier adds its own styles on top, without duplicating the base card rules. Header inside article. Each pricing card is a self-contained article with its own header. This is semantically correct and creates a clear structure inside the card for both the subgrid alignment and for assistive technologies. Feature unavailable. Unavailable features use a class rather than being removed. A comparison table where cards have different numbers of rows breaks alignment. By including every feature on every card, some styled as unavailable, rows stay aligned across columns. Styling the pricing table with subgrid. Copy and paste the CSS to style the pricing table. CSS subgrid, grid template rows. Subgrid is supported in all modern browsers as of 2023. Chrome 117+, Firefox 71+, Safari 16+. For older browsers, the mobile stack fallback, display, block, kicks in via the media query. The pricing table degrades gracefully without subgrid. Cards simply won't have row-aligned content on very old browsers, but the content remains fully readable. Four, the FAQ section. This section builds an expandable FAQ accordion where each question/answer pair opens and closes on click, using only native HTML elements. No JavaScript, no ARIA hacks required. A decade ago, accordion FAQs required JavaScript event listeners, ARIA expanded attributes, and careful keyboard management. Today, the details element does all of this natively, at zero cost in code or performance. The details element is a disclosure widget. Content inside it is hidden by default and revealed when the element is in the open state. The summary element is its visible, clickable heading. The browser handles toggling, keyboard interaction, enter and space activated, and focus management automatically. Screen readers announce it as an expandable button. This is the correct, native, lowest cost implementation. Search engines, including Google, now index content inside details elements. FAQ content structured with details is also a strong candidate for FAQ-rich results in Google search, provided you add the FAQ schema.org structured data markup. The semantic foundation is correct from day one. Add this code into the main section in index.html before the footer section. Note the following. The no open attribute on any details. By default, details elements are closed. Add open, e.g. details class equals FAQ item open to any item you want pre-expanded on page load. Typically the first FAQ, as a visual hint that these items are interactive. The div class equals FAQ answer, wrapper. We wrap the answer content in a div rather than putting it directly inside details. This gives us a reliable CSS target for padding and animation. Styling directly on details or its text nodes is inconsistent across browsers. Paragraph tags inside the answer. Always use p tags inside .faq answer. This ensures correct spacing if you ever have multi-paragraph answers and maintains semantic structure for screen readers. Styling the FAQ. Copy and paste into the css/styles.css file. The native details element does not support CSS height or max height transitions cleanly. The browser removes the element from the layout instantly on close, cutting off any animation. Build a complete, accessible, and validated contact form using only HTML5 and CSS. No JavaScript required at any stage of construction, styling, or validation. Every business website eventually needs to answer one question: how does a visitor become a lead? The contact form is the answer. It is the single most important conversion element on a business site, more important than the hero image, the testimonials, or the pricing table. Earlier in Section 2, we created a contact form on the contact page. Here, we'll enhance the form to include validation feedback and visual states, all handled purely by HTML attributes and CSS selectors. We'll also include a server-side process to handle form submission. For this, we'll use a free third-party service like FormSpree, Netlify, or Web3 Forms, which requires only a change to the action attribute. No backend code required. By the end of this section, contact.html will have a full, working form with a 2-column grid layout, a supporting business details panel, real-time HTML5 validation, focus states, and error styling, all in pure HTML and CSS. Connecting the form to a backend service. HTML forms submit data via HTTP. Without a server to receive that data, the form goes nowhere. For a static site, HTML plus CSS only. The cleanest solution is a free third-party form handling service. You wire it up with a single change to the action attribute. No backend code, no servers to manage. FormSpree, recommended for beginners. FormSpree is a hosted form backend. Free tier allows 50 submissions/month. Setup takes under 2 minutes. To set up FormSpree, do the following. 1. Go to formspree.io and create a free account. Verify your registered email address. 2. Create a new form. FormSpree gives you a unique endpoint URL like https://formspree.io/f/xpwsnap. 3. Set that URL as your form's action attribute thus. Form action equals https://formspree.io/f/spuznap. Method equals post. 4. FormSpree reads the attribute on each input and emails you the submitted data automatically. No other configuration needed. 5. To redirect users after submission, add a hidden input. Input type equals hidden name equals \_next value equals https://yoursite.com/thankyou.html/. When a user clicks send message and the form passes HTML5 validation, the browser serializes all the field values, using their name attributes as keys, and send a post request to the service URL. The service receives it, sends you an email notification, and can redirect the user to a thank you page. The entire flow is handled outside your HTML. Your code stays static and simple. Now, copy this HTML code and replace the entire content of the main section on the contact.html page. Note the following. The hidden _honey input is a simple spam prevention trick. It is invisible to real users, hidden with inline CSS, removed from tab order with tab index equals -1, and hidden from screen readers with ARIA hidden. Automated bots crawl forms and fill every visible field, including hidden ones. FormSpree and Netlify forms both check for this. If _honey has a value, the submission is flagged as spam and discarded. We added no validate to the form element. This disables the browser's native validation UI, the ugly, unstyled tooltips, while keeping all required pattern and min-length attributes active so that our CSS pseudo-classes still respond to validity state. The receiving service will still validate the form. If you prefer the native browser tooltips, simply remove no validate. Transform the placeholder footer from Section 1 into a professional, multi-column site footer, built entirely with CSS grid, CSS variables, and semantic HTML. The footer is the last thing a visitor sees on every page of your site. That makes it a surprisingly high-value piece of real estate. Users who scroll all the way to the bottom are often the most engaged. They have read your content and are now looking for a way to act. Find your phone number, navigate to another section, check your privacy policy, or connect on social media. In Part 1 and Section 1 of Part 2, we placed a simple, single-line copyright footer as a placeholder. It works, but it communicates almost nothing. A professional business website's footer should accomplish 4 things at once. Navigation. Offer an alternative way to move through the site without scrolling back to the top. Contact. Surface your business address, phone number, and email, exactly where users look when they're ready to reach out. Trust. Legal links, copyright notice, and brand consistency signal that this is a real, maintained business. Social proof continuity. Social media handles placed in the footer appear on every page, reinforcing your digital presence. Search engines parse the footer of every page. Consistent internal links in the footer help Googlebot discover and index all your pages. Your business name, address, and phone number in the footer, known as NAP data, are a local SEO signal that helps you rank in location-based searches. Before writing any code, let's map out the structure we are building. Our footer will have 2 distinct horizontal zones stacked vertically. The main grid for columns of content, and the bottom bar, copyright plus legal links. This separation is both structural and visual. A thin dividing line marks the transition. The 4-column layout uses CSS grid with an intentionally unequal column ratio. The brand column is wider, 2FR, because it carries more content, logo plus tagline plus social links, while the 3 remaining columns are narrower, 1FR, 1FR, 1.5FR. This asymmetry creates visual hierarchy and prevents the footer from feeling like a mechanical grid. Now, let's build the footer HTML structure. We begin with the outermost scaffold, the landmark element, the main grid wrapper, and the bottom bar wrapper. No column content yet. Getting the container structure right first makes it much easier to add content inside each column without losing track of nesting. Open all 4 HTML files: index.html, about.html, services.html, and contact.html, and replace the current simple footer with this new structure. The content inside each column comes in the steps that follow. Site footer class styles the outer footer, background color, text color, and top-level padding. Footer inner is the CSS grid container that holds the 4 columns. Footer bottom is the bottom bar below the dividing line. Each class has a single, clear job. The rel equals Nupiter nor fur rule. Any external link that opens in a new tab, target equals _ blank, must include rel equals Nupiter nor fur. Without it, the open page can access the opener's window object via window.opener, a well-known security and privacy vulnerability. This applies to every external link on your site, not just social icons. The social icons here use Unicode characters as a tutorial-friendly shorthand. In a production site, replace them with SVG icons from a library like Hero Icons, Phosphor, or Simple Icons. Paste the SVG code directly inside the A tag, set width and height to 18, and add ARIA hidden equals true to the SVG since the link already has an ARIA label. Privacy policy, terms of use, and cookie policy links are legally required in most jurisdictions. GDPR, CCPA, Nigerian Data Protection Act. Placing them in a dedicated bottom bar keeps them separate from navigational content. They are not part of the site's information architecture. They are compliance artifacts. The visual separation communicates this difference clearly. Style the footer with CSS grid. Now we write the CSS that brings the footer to life. We will build this up in logical layers. The outer container first, then the grid, then the individual column elements, and finally the bottom bar. All rules are written using the CSS variables established in Part 1 for consistency. Open CSS/styles.css. Find the old footer rule block and the old.footer inner block from section 1 and replace them entirely with the following. This is a full replacement, not an addition. Grid column 1/-1 is a shorthand that means span from the first grid line to the last grid line, regardless of how many columns there are. It is the cleanest way to make an element span the full width of a grid without hard-coding the column count. When the grid changes from 4 to 2 columns at the table breakpoint, this one rule still correctly forces the brand column to span both columns. Make every page discoverable in search engines and share beautifully across LinkedIn, WhatsApp, and the web, using nothing but HTML inside the head. You've built the pages. The navigation works. The layout looks professional. But there's a layer of your website that most visitors never see, and it's the layer that decides whether they ever arrive in the first place. That layer lives inside the head of every HTML page. It's made up of meta tags, short declarations that tell search engines what your page is about, and tell social platforms how to display your link when someone shares it. They are invisible to the eye, but enormously visible to machines. And those machines determine a huge portion of your site's traffic. In this section, we will add 2 categories of meta tags to every page. SEO meta tags for search engines like Google, and open graph tags for social previews on LinkedIn, WhatsApp, Facebook, and anywhere links are shared. We will do this entirely in HTML. No plugins, no frameworks, no JavaScript. The 6 essential OG tags in code. When a potential client shares your services page on LinkedIn, the preview that appears is controlled entirely by your open graph tags. A missing or poorly configured OG image means LinkedIn falls back to a random image from your page, or shows nothing at all. A well-crafted meta description is your 155-character advertisement in Google search results. These tags are not optional polish. They are foundational business infrastructure. A meta tag is a self-closing HTML element that lives inside head. We are adding 2 meta tags. SEO meta tags, primarily meta name equals description. This gives search engines a plain language summary of each page. Google uses this text as the snippet shown beneath your page title in search results. Open graph tags, prefixed with OG, are a protocol created by Facebook and now adopted universally. They define a rich card, image, title, description that appears whenever your URL is shared or pasted anywhere on the social web. Both OG, URL, and OG image require the complete URL, including https:/ and your domain name. Relative paths like images/ogimage.jpg will not work. Social media crawlers do not resolve relative URLs from the page's location. Always use the full URL, https://www.kmsms.com/images/og-image.jpg. The canonical URL tag, preventing duplicate content. There is one more tag that belongs in every page's head, and it is not a meta tag. It is a link tag with rel equals canonical. It tells search engines the definitive URL for each page, preventing duplicate content penalties. Consider your homepage. It might be accessible at all of these 4 different URLs simultaneously. This means that a crawler sees 4 duplicates. https://kmsms.com.ng, https://kmsms.com.ng, https://kmsms.com.ng/index.html, and https://www.kmsms.com.ng/index.html. Without a canonical tag, search engines must guess which version is the real one. They may split link equity SEO value across all 4 URLs, reducing each version's ranking power. The canonical tag resolves this ambiguity definitively. For example, link rel equals canonical ref equals https://www.kmsms.com.ing/services.html/. Your rel equals canonical ref and your OG URL should point to the exact same URL on every page. They both declare this is the definitive address of this content, one to search engines, one to social platforms. Writing unique, relevant meta tags for each page. The worst mistake you can make with meta tags is copying the same title and description across every page. Search engines detect this immediately and treat the pages as duplicate content. Each page must have a unique title, a unique meta description, and a unique OG, title and OG, description that reflect its specific content. Think of the meta description as your 155-character advertisement in Google search results. It should answer 2 questions for the searcher. What is on this page? And why should I click this result over the others? Use active language. Include your most important keyword naturally, and end with an implicit or explicit call to action. Google truncates meta descriptions at around 155 to 160 characters on desktop and 120 on mobile devices. Always front-load the most important information. Every word counts. The complete head templates for all 4 pages. Here are the complete, production-ready head blocks for each page. Copy each one directly into the corresponding HTML file. replacing only the domain name www.kennycms.com.ng with your actual domain before going live. Everything else is already tailored to each page. Replace the domain string before deployment. Until then, leave the tags in place. They cause no errors locally. Replace the content of the head tag in each of the pages, including index.html, about.html, etc., with the HTML provided. Notice that the description for each page is unique. Also, the OG image is the single most impactful visual element in your social preview. It is the image that appears when your link is shared on LinkedIn, pasted into WhatsApp, or embedded in a Slack message. A high-quality, correctly sized OG image turns a plain link into a branded media card. The recommended image dimension is 1200x 630px of JPG or PNG file format. For a business site, the OG image is typically a branded graphic, a clean, professional design with your logo, business name, and a short tagline against a branded background color. Testing your meta tags before going live. Meta tags cannot be tested locally. Social media crawlers only visit live URLs. However, there are official testing tools from each major platform that let you input a live URL and see exactly how your page will appear when shared. Once your site is deployed, you should test every page through at least any two of the tools below. LinkedIn Post Inspector. LinkedIn.com Post Inspector. 2. Facebook Sharing Debugger. developers.facebook.com/tools/debug. 3. Twitter/X Card Validator. cards-dev.twitter.com/validator. 4. OpenGraph.xyz. https://www.opengraph.xyz. Social media platforms cache your page's meta tags aggressively, sometimes for days. Whenever you update your OG tags and redeploy, always run the Facebook Sharing Debugger and click Scrape Again to force a cache refresh. Without this step, the old preview will continue to appear even after your tags are correct on the live server. Build a JavaScript-free mobile menu, a fully keyboard-navigable drop-down, and a forward-looking CSS anchor positioning tooltip, all with pure HTML and CSS. In Section 1, we built the foundational navigation, a horizontal link list on desktop with a working active state. That gets a site functional. But real business websites need two more things: a mobile menu. On screens narrower than about 640px, a row of navigation links either overflows, wraps awkwardly, or disappears. Every business site needs a hamburger menu that opens and closes on mobile. The standard solution is for JavaScript, but we do not need it. A drop-down for grouped links. When a business offers multiple services or has subpages under a section, a drop-down menu lets you organize those links without cluttering the main NAV bar. Everything in this section is built with zero JavaScript. The mobile menu uses the checked pseudo-class selector. The drop-down uses hover and focus within. The keyboard accessibility uses focus visible and semantic HTML. The technique works by pairing a hidden input type equals checkbox with a visible label. When a user clicks the label, the hamburger icon, the checkbox toggles its checked state. CSS then uses the checked pseudo class as a conditional, showing or hide the NAV panel depending on whether the checkbox is checked. The label is the button. The checkbox is the invisible state machine. Copy the following HTML code and replace the header section of all the pages: index.html, about.html, services.html, and contact.html. CSS, hiding the checkbox and styling the hamburger. Copy the following CSS and paste it after the existing header styles in the CSS/styles.css. The checkbox hack cannot detect a click outside the menu. That requires JavaScript. For a business site, this is usually acceptable. The user clicks the times to close or navigates to a page, which reloads the HTML, resetting the checkbox. If you need outside click to close, that is the right time to reach for a small, targeted JavaScript snippet. But for most cases, this pure CSS approach is perfectly usable. You've built a real business website. What started as a single homepage is now a fully connected, professionally structured multi-page website, built entirely with HTML and CSS. No frameworks, no shortcuts. This part was the most demanding phase of this series. You didn't just add pages. You made architectural decisions that real professional developers make every day. How to structure files so paths never break, how to communicate page identity accessibly without JavaScript, how to make a form useful without a backend, and how to use CSS features that most developers reach for a framework to handle. The techniques covered in Part 2 are not cosmetic additions. They're foundational, transferable skills. Every one of them applies directly to real client work, professional code bases, and the modern web platform. Every experienced developer who reaches for a framework does so consciously, knowing exactly what problem that framework solves and what it costs in complexity, performance, and dependency maintenance. You now have the foundation to make that choice knowingly, not out of necessity. Part 2 gave your website its complete structure and content. Part 3 will take it from complete to exceptional, focusing on the details that separate a student project from a site you'd confidently hand to a real client or launch under your own name. To follow through, subscribe, like, comment, and share this video.